we're not over this, are we? And how significant is this R-rate situation in Germany?
Yes, I think you're completely right that the situation is very fragile in all countries which are controlling this virus at a low level. I think what we're seeing in the States is definitely the start of a second wave. Some are saying it's the continuation of the first wave, and many states slowly giving up, even trying to impose restrictions. I think in Germany it's slightly different in that this is quite a localized outbreak at a meatpacking factory. It was identified quite quickly, and they're getting testing and tracing up. So I think we shouldn't be too worried just looking at the R, because it's quite a localized outbreak. And right now I think what we have to see is, will it tip over into community transmission, or will their testing and tracing, withstand this, get those cases under control and suppress them again?
For those who don't understand what the R rate is, just in simple language, and I'm aware you're a brilliant scientist, this might be difficult for you, but in simple language, so that people can really get their heads around this, what is it and why is it so significant to keep it under 1?
Yeah, so quite simply, the R number is how many people one person will pass the infection on to. And the worry is that if it's around 3, which this virus seems to transmit to if you don't have any other measures in place, you'll have exponential growth. It's where we were in February and what we're seeing now in some poor countries that don't have any restrictions in place. If you're able to have, whether it's face masks or some kind of lockdown measure or testing and tracing to get R under 1, it means over time, you'll slowly work towards this burning out. Of course, it's going to take much longer if you're at 0.9. You can get it to 0.2. That means within 10 weeks, you'll just have a handful of cases. So that's why it's significant.
We've looked at Germany as a role model in this crisis, haven't we? And now it's seen its R number seemingly rocket. I know that you say it's, we have to be aware that this is localised. But one of the issues I think that's alarmed people is the connection to slaughterhouses or meat packing plants. In the UK, 3 factories have been affected. A meat processing plant in Anglesey, a meat processing plant in West Yorkshire, and a factory in Wrexham. Is there a problem specifically with abattoirs, slaughterhouses, meat packing plants? Is that, that seems a sort of odd place to suddenly see this infection spiking again.
Yes, and actually this has been happening throughout the United States for weeks. And the question at that point was, why was it not happening in Europe? So we're seeing a similar pattern here that started there. This virus likes cold, damp conditions. Most of these factories that are under 5 degrees Celsius, as well as people in very close conditions and not distancing and probably not wearing masks and having to shout at each other, which means droplets could be spraying. I think the worrying thing for me is also, if this virus really likes the cold and the damp, this means governments need to look ahead to winter, those in the Northern Hemisphere, and think, actually, how are you going to manage your winter months with a virus that seems to, die within minutes outside, but seems to thrive on surfaces and indoor conditions?
Well, bring in Hillary here. Hillary, the big question that everyone has in the back of their mind as we come out of this lockdown, and apparently Boris Johnson on Tuesday is about to really release things, is will there be a second wave, in particular in the winter, potentially running alongside perhaps a bad flu season? That might be the kind of Armageddon for coronavirus, if you like, with the pressure it may put on our health services. What is the feeling amongst all your doctor and scientific friends?
Well, we are concerned that we haven't really come out of the first peak. We're in a plateau. We're still seeing mortality rates. We're still seeing new cases, several thousand every day confirmed. So I think it's something that we just don't know. We're concerned about it, of course, and people still need to socially distance. They need to wash their hands frequently. It's about human behaviour that will control this virus ultimately, not about testing and tracing, because that doesn't stop the spread. You can test as many as you like, but if people aren't behaving correctly, then the virus will spread.
I'll give you one anecdotal thing. Yesterday, I went and filled up my car with petrol and had a little chat with the woman behind the counter. I said, how busy are you? She went, she said, today is the busiest day since before all this started. She said, it's basically back to normal. I've had so many cars in all day, and she had the day before, Saturday. And my sense walking around was we're, pretty well, most people are now viewing it back to normal. Now, you know, when you go out, it is still very weird. I mean, if someone had said to me 6 months ago, you're going to be walking to some of your favourite shops and having to stand in a certain place and wait for other people, you would think they were nuts. But so we are, you know, there's certainly a different way of behaving. We're not all touching and hugging and kissing each other, and we're not all crammed in to shops in the way we were. However, Hillary, there's no doubt for a lot of people in this country, mentally, they've locked out of this lockdown.
Absolutely. I think a lot of people think this is all over now, that they see the figures coming down, they see the R rate under 1, they see the lockdown measures being de-restricted, and they think life is back to normal, and they'd be very wrong. I think that would be very dangerous if people thought that. This is a very, very transmissible virus. We've only got to look around the world to see how quickly it spread. And nothing has changed, except that we're a bit more aware of it now. We are socially distancing, we're taking those precautions, but people are beginning to forget them already. And I think we do that at our peril, I really do.
Professor Schroeder, talk this morning of a quicker, easier test, a saliva test, rather than the double swab test. Is that a way that we can learn to live alongside the virus by testing people more often, more quickly, and just sort of having some better idea of where the virus is?
Yes, I think it's really positive if we can get a saliva test, because the current test, first, it's really hard to do on your own. So all those test kits that are mailed to people, there are a lot of false negatives because people are not swabbing themselves properly. And secondly, if we do want to have regular testing of those working in care homes and hospitals, possibly teachers, it has to be comfortable if they're doing it on a weekly basis. So I think this is very, very important. I think testing is absolutely essential in the next few months, especially if we want to keep the numbers as low as possible.
And when would you get the results from that test? Would it be swifter as well?
I think right now what the hope is you have to get results within 48 hours, optimally within 24 hours. If the test results are any longer than that, then they become useless, because that means that person will keep circulating.
Professor, there are so many unanswerables about this. One encouraging thing last week was we found that a standard steroid, which has been available for decades, actually is having a demonstrably good effect on saving people's lives, and may well save many lives going forward, which is going to be great in many countries which are now having huge problems, like Mexico, Brazil, and so on. But until we get a cure, in the sense of drugs that can actually cure this, a vaccine or whatever it may be, or as with HIV, drugs that can stop people dying, until we get that, or we get testing up to a level where it becomes just second nature and we get on top of it like that, how do we come out of this? I mean, this sort of, what people find, I think, really frustrating is the kind of open-ended nature of this. Normally, when there's a bad event, you know, we can all go, OK, after 3 weeks, 4 weeks, deep breath, we get on with our lives. Here we are, months and months and months down the line, and it still looks to most people like there's no end, there's no light at the end of this tunnel.
Yeah, I truly believe the fastest way through this and the best way for public health, the economy, and society is elimination. We're so close to getting rid of this virus, and if we could actually have strong leadership on this issue. I think as soon as senior business people realize we will never have a normal economy while this virus is circulating, you'll have a somewhat messy economy. It's going to get messier as we head into winter. There's a real, argument to be made of using the summer months to drive the numbers low. That means you can get to a position where you can open society normally, at least within your borders, and then figure out how you do your border checks, whether it's testing at airports, screening of passengers, air bridges with other countries that have low numbers. But I think that needs to click in people's head that actually this is a long-term problem, and actually the best way through it for the next few months would just be to get rid of the virus, because living with it is going to be painful.
And do you think we can do that if there's a concerted global will to do it?
Yes, I think, though, it'll have to start on a country-by-country basis, because there are some countries who have done it effectively, like Vietnam, Thailand, New Zealand. But there are other going to be countries like Brazil and India that no matter what they try with their population size, they're not going to be able to feasibly do this. So I think it means within the UK, we are an island. We have a major advantage. Our cases have come down. There's been remarkable compliance. And I think the message is people have sacrificed for weeks. Don't let that sacrifice go to waste by the numbers jumping up again and then having to trigger a second lockdown next winter.